Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, for today's topic, for today's talk, I was thinking, what should I talk about this month? And then, after considering a lot of things, I finally settled down to something I've been thinking, like for the last couple of months or so. These themes, recurring themes, comes to you again and again. So I wanted to talk about wisdom. What is wisdom? So it's a big topic. It's not something easy to cover. It's a vast topic to give a talk about, but I'll try to sort of cover some things, something relevant, something we can relate to, and just to try to sort of get our head around what is this thing called wisdom. The Pali term is panya. So I've been going through some suttas, and then the one sutta actually particularly struck me. So let me start. Let me set the stage with this sutta. We all heard about this encounter with Alavaka. Remember, Lord Buddha visited this yakka once at its house, at its residence. So this is the Aloka Sutta found in Samyutta Nikaya, Devata Samyutta. So, thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Alavi, the haunt of the Yakka Alavaka. Then the Yakka Alavaka approached the Blessed One and said to him, "Get out, ascetic." "All right, friend," the Blessed One said, and he went out. "Come in, ascetic." "All right, friend," the Blessed One said, and he went in. A second time, and a third time, the Yakka Alavaka said to the Blessed One, "Get out, ascetic." "All right, friend," the Blessed One said, and he went out. "Come in, ascetic." "All right, friend," the Blessed One said, and he went in. So the Alaka was asking Lord Buddha to sort of go out and come back in. So trying to sort of bullying, trying to bully Lord Buddha. So a fourth time, the Yakka Alaka said to the Blessed One, "Get out, ascetic." "I won't go out, friend. Do whatever you have to do." So, Lord Buddha sort of stands his ground now. Then, instead of pestering Lord Buddha to go out, Alaka asked a question now. "I'll ask you a question, ascetic. If you won't answer me, I'll drive you insane, or I'll split your heart, or I'll grab you by the feet and hurl you across the Ganges, the river Ganges." The Lord Buddha says, "I do not see anyone in this world, friend, with its devas, Mar and Brahma, in this generation with its ascetic and Brahmins, its devas and humans, who could drive me insane or split my heart or grab me by the feet and hurl me across the Ganges. But ask whatever you want, friend." So you can see how assertive the Lord Buddha is. You try to be flexible, try to be sensible. You are visiting someone's house, so the householder says, "Okay, you do this." You try to be polite and civil, and for the third time, he did it, and for the fourth time, okay, this is it. I'm not gonna be subject to your abuse. You can be assertive sometimes. Try to be reasonable, and sometimes you tell what you think because you don't have to go through this. And Alaga wanted to ask a question, and he asked a question in a verse form. These are verses. What here is a man's best treasure? What practice well brings happiness? What is really the sweetest of tastes? How lives the one who they say lives best? So I'll repeat the question once again. This is a verse. What here is man's best treasure? What practice well brings happiness? Second question. What is really the sweetest of tastes? Third one. And the fourth, how lives the one who say, the word order is super sort of confusing because it's verse. How lives the one who they say lives best? You will understand the answer. So the answer, to the answers, faith is here a man's best treasure. The faith. The Dhamma, practiced well, brings happiness. The truth is really the sweetest of tastes. And the fourth one living by wisdom, they say, lives best. So, the faith is the best treasure for a man, and Dhamma practiced well brings happiness, and the truth is the sweetest of all, and the living by wisdom, you can say that you lived well. That's how you should lead your life by wisdom. That's the best of living out of any. And he asked a second sort of set of questions, the second verse from Alavaka. In Pali also it sounds very kind of nice. In English it sort of has this sort of uneven edges, but it's in Pali, if you have a sense of Pali, it flows very nicely. How does one cross over the flood? How does one cross the rugged sea? How does one overcome suffering? How is one purified? I'll repeat it again. How does one cross over the flood? How does one cross over the rugged sea? How does one overcome suffering? How is one purified? And what were the answers? By faith, one crosses over the flood. By diligence, the rugged sea. By energy, one overcomes suffering. By wisdom, one is purified. And Alavaka goes on and asks a few more questions. Again, how does one gain wisdom? How does one find wealth? How does one achieve acclaim? How bind friends to oneself? When passing from this world to next, how does one not sorrow? The answer, placing faith in Dhamma of Arahants for the attainment of Nibbana. From desire to learn gains wisdom if one is diligent and astute. Doing what is proper, dutiful, one with initiative finds wealth. By truthfulness one wins acclaim, giving one binds friends. That is how one does not sorrow when passing from this world to the next. The faithful seeker of the household life, in whom dwell these four qualities: truth, Dhamma, steadfastness, generosity, does not sorrow when he passes on. Come now, ask others as well, the many ascetics and Brahmins, whether there is found here anything better than truth, self-control, generosity, and patience. So Lord Buddha sort of gives a long answer to that and invites Alavaka, check this with other ascetics and Brahmins. He invites to check, to inquiry, and Alavaka replies, and this is the conclusion of the sutta. Why now should I ask this question of the many ascetics and Brahmins? Today I have understood the good pertaining to the future life. Indeed, for my sake the Buddha came to reside at Alavi. Today I have understood where a gift bears great fruit. I myself will travel about from village to village, town to town, paying homage to the Enlightened One and to the excellence of the Dhamma. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, um, so what are the takeaway points of this sutta? So, one of the important points are uh, uh, Sabda is a treasure. So, so all practice, all this, the Dhamma practicing, all starts with the Sabda. That it is sort of a treasure. It is assimilated to a treasure, a Dhana. Uh, you hear in other suttas also, Sabda is called as a Dhana, treasure. And Dhamma, practicing Dhamma, leads to joy. That's also a takeaway point from this sutta. Practicing Dhamma, it increases your happiness. It stabilizes you. It kind of makes you a less dramatic person. It leads to increase of happiness. At least it sort of brings that baseline level of happiness that the less drama, sort of less fluctuation to your character. That's what you should experience. That's what you should expect when you practice Dhamma. So that's also one of the key ideas here. And leading a life with wisdom, whatever that means, is the best way of living. So we should understand what is this wisdom. The wisdom is very important. So now with the second verse, the Alam asks actually how to cross this flood, how to go across this ocean, this samsara dukkha. Again, Lord Buddha says the faith as by faith one crosses over the flood. It's the faith actually makes you start crossing this thing over. It's a very important thing. So the faith leads to wisdom. This is a very familiar idea. Now, if you look at the five indriyas, the five faculties, not this eyes, ears, kind of this external sort of you can see how you experience the external world. Not those faculties. These five indriyas. What are the five indriyas? The saddha, the virya, the sati, the samadhi, and the panya. So these things sort of it is actually ordered in a fashion. One leads to another fashion. The sabda leads to virya, the faith leads to the energy. Then energy leads to the sati, the mindfulness. The mindfulness leads to samadhi, the calmness, the stillness, and that stillness leads to panya. So you see, the Lord Buddha mentions the first very foremost quality. If you want to go across the flood, you need to have saddha. Saddha is the foremost. And the panya will be around the corner if you follow the sequence. We need to figure out actually what is this panya anyway. We need to have an idea. So um, there are a lot of things we hear in the name of panya. This is an age of intellectual brilliance. A lot of ideas, philosophies. We have a lot of more intelligent discussions. You know, compared to any time in the past. In history. The technology and all these things actually made it possible also to spread all these great ideas. These intellectual sort of debates and things like that. So I would like to start with, instead of defining what the wisdom is according to the suttas, according to what the teachers say, according to my understanding, I would like to visit first what is not wisdom. Just as little being little unconventional here. So, what is not wisdom? So, now these ideas, these intellectual concepts and stuff, we think, we try to sort of understand. It doesn't have to be stuff finding this you find in the suttas. Things you hear over social media, or things like prevalent to this time. Uh, like to begin with, like this someone, this idea. It's not like a new idea. It's more kind of prevalent in, used to at least prevalent in Western thought. I mean, it is to this day that the faith, the faith, you have to be careful. The term faith actually is something, uh, you know, bears negative connotations sometimes. The saddha, the term saddha itself, I mean, not the Pali term saddha, but shraddha in Sinhala. When you hear the shraddha, you have to develop your shraddha and things like that, the faith. It gives rise to this sort of negative things because there are so many sort of silly things happening in the name of saddha, in the name of religion. So we don't want to sort of tap into that. So, so we have this sort of a fear, we have this sort of a little kind of arguing, constant argument with uh, this quality called saddha. But here Lord Buddha says, the saddha is the first and foremost of the qualities. So, saddha versus panya, it's not, the faith can be necessarily bad and, misleading. You have to be, you have to be critical minded, you have to sort of think rationally. The wisdom is something you should seek over saddha. That is something you hear. Again, this is something not according to the suttas, because there is some kind of misunderstanding here. And then these ideas, the sutta knowledge and all these things leads to thinking, the excessive thinking, we try to sort of derive ideas, derive wisdom. We have to try to sort of squeeze wisdom out of these suttas by thinking, sheer thinking, the logical reasoning. And sometimes we may call it yoga manasikara, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's proliferation. So how do you know? How do you know this is not yoga manasikara, but this is proliferation? How do you know that? Um, so these answers you sort of work out. Do they back by? Do they have the backing of the real world data? What's the real world experiences? Tell you. Uh, did it work? These practices. Are they? Do they lead to happiness, or kind of makes you more sort of arrogant, more kind of dogmatic, sort of argumentative, not easy to sort of give an advice kind of a person? Because it leads to that this panya of yours. So that's a sign. That's a sign that it's not panya, because it's not based on real world data. What is real world data here? Why this Dhamma, the practice of Dhamma, the whole enterprise? Why is it there? Why the Lord Buddha even is there to begin with? Because there is suffering, there is this incompleteness in human life. There is wealth and all these things. Things were given. You sort of won with your effort and all these things, but again taken away by the worldly numbers. The health, you have it right now, and suddenly you find yourself in a situation it's taken away. Find yourself in a trouble. Can be regarding the wealth, can be regarding your relationships, anything. And you find people realistically, actually, who are well off, who are really happy, content, not kind of messy around, in their daily lives, things like that. There's something going on always, some drama, something to sort of have a gossip about. Why is it? That's essentially the dukkha. Something, some sort of a fly, sort of a lingering and bothering you. Some kind of thing happening. So that's why. So as Buddhists, or even the Lord Buddha thought that it's good that if I could understand, if I could transcend all this suffering business, stop the samsara. It's good that if I could sort of bring all these things to a halt. That was the original idea. That was the very original idea, the concept, if you like. The first ditthi, first of all, the samadhi. Why all these things? What makes, what the Buddhism really about. So that's the original question. If anything else postulated that means, okay, any practice I sort of take up supports to that goal, lessening of suffering, and eventually ending of suffering. So that's, whatever the data supports that agenda, okay, that is a proof that this particular practice actually leads to something. You're getting somewhere, okay, or someone sort of getting somewhere. So we could follow these people. these teachers, these practitioners, these Kalyanamittas. So not just a pure sort of reasoning, that all these things kind of you derive by the pure reasoning, but are they sort of backed by the real world data? Does it lead to ending of suffering? So, and this um, ideas, these things, these namings, these conventions, it's very easy to sort of get carried away by these things. This is one particular verse which strikes me uh, greatly. Lord Buddha sort of summarizes, what is this thing called naming is. So this is also in the Samyutta. Instead of me sort of um, paraphrasing it, I wanted to sort of give you the original of this verse. So let me read out the Pali, and maybe I could translate this. So this is in the Devata Samyutta once again. Uh, yeah, actually, yes. So yeah, this is in the first Samyutta, the Sagatha Samyutta, basically, the Devatas asking these questions. The Nama Sutta. Kinsu, the Deva asked the question, Kinsu sabbang anvabhavi, Kinsu viyo navijjati, Kissasu ekadhammas sabbeva vasamanvagruti. So the Deva asked, what is um, what is this thing? What is this the Dhamma that controls everything or oversees everything? What is the greatest thing um, other than anything? What is the greatest? What is this thing above all? Kissasu ekadammasa sabbe vasamanvaguti. What is this one Dhamma actually controls everything? Leads everything. So Lord Buddha answers this question. Namang sambanganvabhavi nama bhiyo navijjati namasa ekadammasa sabbeva vasamanvaguti. Namam Sabbangadvabhavi. The name is the greatest or the foremost of everything. Nama Bhiyo Navijati. There's nothing you could see uh, uh, bigger than the Nama. The Nama is on top of it. And the Nama Sekadammas Sabbeva Vasamanvaguti. So this one thing called Nama, the naming, controls everything, which is in charge of everything. So this is this verse also mentioned in the light of uh, this Nama Rupa, this Dhamma called Nama Rupa. I don't want to sort of get into that sort of subtle sort of details about these things, but when you look at the term, uh, this most simplistic, straightforward translation for nama is naming, giving a name. Behind that giving the name, it could be a sanya or a vedana or any other sort of mental sort of qualities behind it. I don't want to sort of touch that part, but just this thing called naming. We need a name for anything, just to kind of converse with each other. Those are these ideas. Not just labels. Then these things become like ideas. But this particular idea, this concept, those are also part of the naming thing. So without a name, it's nothing. as Bhante Jnanananda, my teacher, would point out, we would say this thing without a name. At least we call something, what is this thing? We don't know that, we don't know the name, something like that. Still, it's some kind of designation. Anamako, I remember a bhikkhu uh, given the name Anamako or a person. At least this is the case of a bhikkhu. Very kind of a strange name, to be honest. But Anamako, a person without a name, that itself another name, Anamaka. It's a kind of a label. So um, we have to be very careful. These are the things, these are these sort of entities, these pointers which we exchange our ideas and opinions, we express our things, these ideas very succinctly. But it is so controlling, it is so, center, it is in the center of how the mind operates. If an idea given to you, that can be contagious, that can be very controlling, that can be misleading as well. This naming. Imagine you are, back in school, you were called names, some kind of a name which you didn't like. I mean, not your name, but the kids call names which you don't like. But when they sort of say it again and again, how it's painful. Because when you hear this name called to you, you tap into that energy, that tap into that perception. So the names are very powerful. These things, for a moment you believe that, and that is painful. On the contrary, what the Ajahn says, if you were called by, if you were called a dog, just sort of see whether you have a tail, you know, just check whether you have a tail. If you don't have a tail, don't worry about it. What would you worry? Ajahn would say, why, So he sort of points out actually how to transcend this thing, just don't get carried away by this name calling. Not just name calling, giving names, these philosophical ideas and all these things. Sounds pretty sort of subtle, pretty nice, well kind of thought ideas. But are they backed by the sutras? Are they backed by the Dhamma? As we know it, are they backed by the real world data? That means that leads to eventual ending of suffering. These ideas has to be backed by this data. So that is this good old Kalama Sutta about. Remember, people are confused. This Kalama Brahm means approachable Buddha. Sort of some had like mixed ideas about any teachers, came by Kala. So they asked Lord Buddha, Bhante, time to time, these ascetics and Brahmins pass us by. They preach this. It's a certain doctrine, then they say, this is the truth. Anything else is just rubbish. Things like that kind of thing. And another one would, come and say, tells some other thing, and the claims that this is the truth. So who to trust? They're basically saying there are so many, there are ocean of ideas and opinions and concepts. How can we possibly navigate this? It's a very good sutta. It's just amazing. So Lord Buddha says, okay, fair enough. He's sort of you can see actually, It's not his sort of a usual mode, okay, have the saddha and, get your act together and sort of, put forth effort. Now he sort of take a step back. He kind of, he wants to sort of give a, like a nice universal formula for everyone to work with. It doesn't have to be, for Buddhists. Just to kind of how to sort of test ideas. What's the original criteria? The assumption is though that one seek for happiness. One leads. One needs. One aspires to uh, uh, transcend dukkha. So that's the whole kind of idea behind it. So that's an assumption. So what does he say? So any ideas, any concepts in the books, the teachers would say these things. The book says, the tradition says, and certain principles are very cool things, prevalent to this day and age. Anything, any political or any sort of other things, it doesn't have to be religious, and rational thinking. Ma takka hetu, ma naya hetu, ma akara paritakena. That is rational thinking. I'm afraid to sort of, I had to bring this to you. Even the rational thinking, sort of, now look to this sort of, puts on spot. So basically he says, these are not the real criteria. You're sort of attracted by these things, but these are not the real test for anyone sort of saying something new, some kind of view. So you encounter a new idea, how can you possibly test these things? Whether these things leads to nirvana or the ending of suffering. So these things, ideas from, you heard from the teacher, the books, the tradition, you're following a certain principle, you're following a logic, you're following rational thinking. So try to sort of derive something systematically. That wouldn't come. Sometimes the Kalama Sutta explanation stops there and say, claiming that, Lord Buddha said, oh, even don't believe me. That's not the point. So there's another section follows by this, followed by this. But is it anything you practice leads to lessening of raga, dosa, moha, the loga, dosa, moha? That's one criteria to test. And the second thing is that the wise people approve of these things, or the wise people sort of disapprove certain things. That's also a sign. Who are these wise people? Who are calm, who are sort of happy, who are, keeping sila, who have understood the dukkha, who has realized Nibbana. So that's also another assumption. So those wise people, they approve this thing. So these are the two tests. So not just these ideas, these cool ideas and concepts, principles, but does these things pass this test? So if these ideas pass this test, then it is okay. Whatever you sort of learn from books, the tradition, all these things, all these cool ideas and philosophies. If the litmus test pass, is passed, then they're okay. So here, he's not like denying anything necessarily. These things are, tradition is bad or the book learning is bad, but he says this is the real standard. So everything else follows that. So we have to be careful about this naming, things, not just labels, but these sort of entities or these ideas, these cool ideas, cool philosophies. You have to sort of test these things. And that's why we increasingly see these different interpretations comes up. That there are so many different sort of novel ideas, how to see, these ideas in the Dhamma. Even to the point like the Pali terms are sort of broken, analyzed in a certain way, actually, which is not kind of according to the grammar or anything. Totally sort of against the tradition of how we understand the language, and given a novel idea, a novel meaning, mostly like funny sometimes, sounds funny. So, and people think that, oh, there's something, something, there must be something like this, in essence here, this may be the thing what I was looking for. And, these things sort of get more popularity than this traditional, the same old, sort of boring interpretation. So, people get carried away by these ideas. It's good to sort of reinterpret these things in current, the contemporary terms, but do they agree with the bigger picture given by the suttas, by the wise teachers who have sort of practiced well, practicing well. So do they lead to the lessening the dukkha, understanding the suffering? So that has, those things are the real criteria. So the ideas can be novel, but you have to test these things. So just an idea itself, just a concept itself, we don't, as Buddhists, we don't consider them as wisdom. That's not panya. It has to sort of run uh, by these other sort of tests. So, okay, maybe now it's time sort of come to what is wisdom. I've already sort of explained what is wisdom and what is not wisdom already. What is the telltale sign? What are the signs of telltale signs of wisdom? So there are these couple of suttas find in Anguttaras, I reckon. There's one sutta and the advice given to Venerable Upali. There's another sutta, another sort of set of advices given to Venerable Gotami, Mahaprajapati Gotami. So if I summarize these things, it says whatever leads to simplification of things, letting go of things, that leads to more contentment, lessening of suffering, or the nibbida. You develop that nibbida towards the world, this passion towards the world. You develop, and so that nibbida leads to viraga. You are sort of letting go of things. The things cease to you. The viraga. Things leads to suffering. I'm sorry, the nirodha. Basically, you are letting go of things. You are emptying things. The nishida, viraga, nirodha happening to you. If a certain practice leads to that, then you can determine that this is Dhamma and this is Vinaya. That is also, now this is yet another sort of like a test, a criteria. to see actually what is wisdom. It hints the quality of the wisdom. So okay, this is wisdom. If this thing doesn't lead to that, you know that this may not the wisdom. So we have to sort of consider these things very seriously. And let me read actually like I'll kind of quote this sutta very shortly. Uh, this is about the qualities of Venerable. Um, so there are like this, and this particular in this particular case, Venerable Sariputta is described as a wise person, in terms of wisdom, as a wise person. So this is a person actually with wisdom. So who is a wise person? This is like a good example. So Lord Buddha once asked by actually Venerable Anand asked by Lord Buddha, Anand, do you endorse Sariputta? He then Virvahananda actually explains, of course I adore, I like Bhante Sariputta because of this. Then he sort of goes on and explaining, his character. So so the sutta goes like this: Sir, who on earth would not endorse Venerable Sariputta unless they are a fool, hater, delusional, or mentally deranged? Venerable Sariputta is astute. He has great wisdom, widespread wisdom, joyous wisdom, swift wisdom, sharp wisdom, and penetrating wisdom. He has few wishes, he is content, secluded, aloof, and energetic. He gives advice and accepts advice. He accuses and criticizes wickedness, the wrongdoings. Who on earth would not endorse Venerable Sariputta? So the Venerable says. So this is a description of a wise person. Uh, he has great wisdom, widespread wisdom, the joyous wisdom, the swift wisdom, the sharp wisdom, and penetrating wisdom. So not just not some bunch of ideas and like with great intellect, but it covers everything. It's a joyous wisdom. It's not just wisdom, and he has a good character. He's energetic, gives advice, and accepts advice. He's if the Lord Buddha is the king, he's the general. He's the general of this Dhamma Vinaya. He's the Senapati, Dhamma Senapati. And yet, not only he gives advice, he accepts advice. That's how he is. So this is a kind of good example of a wise person. And let me read out the sutta uh, defines the panya. Now in Samyutta, in the Indriya Samyutta, the Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, and Panya is explained. What are these indriyas are. The Panyendriya is explained. The Panyendriya is explained like this. And what bhikkhus is the faculty of wisdom? Here bhikkhus, the noble disciple, is wise. He possesses wisdom directed to arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. He understands as it really is. This is suffering. He understands as it really is. This is the origin of suffering. He understands as it really is. This is the cessation of suffering. He understands as it really is. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called the faculty of wisdom. These bhikkhus are the five faculties. And the sutta, the couple of suttas before, Lord Buddha gives the foremost example for a panyendriya, for the wisdom faculty. And where bhikkhus is the faculty of wisdom to be seen, the panyendriya to be seen, the faculty of wisdom is to be seen here in the Four Noble Truths. These bhikkhus are the five faculties. So, the panyendriya, according to the suttas, is somehow hovering around Four Noble Truths, the understanding of the Four Noble Truths, the arising and passing away of things. What is the understanding of a Sotapanna person? Yang kinchi samudaya Dhamma sakkanta nirodha Dhamma. Anything subject to arising will pass away. So that's the causality. There is this arising and there is a passing away. And there is this arising of the dukkha, the reason for the dukkha, the cessation of the dukkha, and the path leading to that dukkha. So the Four Noble Truths, the good old Four Noble Truths. So the wisdom you have, does it leads to the cessation of suffering? Have you become a more sort of light-hearted person? Have you managed to sort of lessen your ego? Have you managed to simplify your things? Getting things less complicated. Or you feel light-hearted. So that's a sign of wisdom. Then you can say, okay, I have some wisdom. You can claim that. Not necessarily these bright, these nice ideas. It is good to know these things because the Vyonaso Manasikara is a very important practice. So it's good to know these things. The Suttamaya Panya, according to the commentaries, the tradition, the commentarial tradition, sort of categorizes the Panya into three. Suttamaya Panya, what you hear from other Kalyanamitas. Chintamaya Panya, which is the Panya you derived out of thinking, and Bhavanamaya Panya, the Panya you develop by developing things. Bhavana means not just meditation, but develop your mind. You keep sila, you give dana, you take up these practices and practice yourself, and you meditate, you endure, you have patience. The Kanti Paramanta Bodhidika. So the Kanti is the ultimate practice. Tapo means like an ascetic practice, which burns away the kilesas. So that's a sign of a wise person. So I would like to encourage you that to wisely navigate of the sea of these wise ideas, quote unquote. You have to navigate these things and find yourself. You know the criteria. You know the real data, real world data backs these ideas. And once you practice, you see for yourself. Actually, it has make you a nice human being. So I would like to encourage you to think more and consider what I've just said in this talk today. And I would like to conclude this talk by encouraging you to practice. And it's a nice thing to see that a lot of people we see today practice together. Um, so it's a so we can tap into each other's energy. It's a nice thing to see as a group we practice. It's a rare thing to see in this world. There are so many gatherings you see in the world, but not many who practice as well. So I would like to extend my anumodana, and I would like to encourage to keep practice, keep practice like this. Sadhu, sadhu. So are there any questions? I could entertain a few questions quickly regarding the talk I just gave. Yes.
Quick question. Tapo means tapa, is it? Like heat?
Yes.
Like tapo vana means same thing.
The tapa, the heat is the tapo, the word tapo. The, the, the tapas, the word tapas coming from that word, but in spiritual context, the tapas means you're sort of like, you're burning, you're heating sort of things away, basically burning, like a fire. Tapodavana is because of the hot springs, that's Tapodavana. Tapovana it's not from the original heat, but the derivative, which is like the tapas, meditative sort of atmosphere kind of meaning. Okay, I think. Okay, so you have a question, yes? Yes, by giving names, it kind of reinforces the Sakai deity. It, it's a yes, naming by naming things. It is it encourages us to sort of accumulate things, we develop things. We so it's just part of the this attachment thing as well. Attavada, upadana, these ideas and opinions of ours also, that's also part of the upadana, one of the upadanas. Yes, yeah, I agree. Well, eventually, sometimes these things, if you sort of consider like isolatedly, it might kind of sound like far-fetched. But these things sort of like connected to each other. You can't sort of understand one without understanding the other. You will see it's inevitable.